evening and welcome to the regular meeting for March the 5th for the Stanley County Board of Commissioners. Welcome all of you here this evening, whether you're here in person or whether you are following us by our video after the fact. We always appreciate having our reporters and folks who are writing other media interest, blogs and whatever. We always appreciate them being here and help getting information out to the community. At this time, I'd like to call on Commissioner Tony Dennis to have our invocation.
Let us pray. Direct us, Lord, in all our doings with your favor. Give us your continual help, that in all our work, begun, continued, and ended, we may leave a strong legacy for the next generation and glorify your name. Amen.
Thank you, sir. We do have a couple of adjustments we need to make to the agenda tonight. Why don't we're going to pull number 3, or I'll entertain a motion to pull number 3 and replace it with our 911 emergency radio communication plan, and add number 4, which will be a resolution pertaining to the North Carolina marriage amendment, and that will change our consent agenda to number 5.
Mr. Chairman, motion to pull number 3 and put in its place the 911 topic, to make number 4 the marriage amendment and number 5 the consent agenda.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Louder and a second by Commissioner McIntyre. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So we have our adjustments to the agenda made. Our first item on our agenda tonight is a presentation from the Clerk of Court's office, and the presenter will be Mike Kennicott, Clerk of Court.
Good evening, everyone.
Welcome.
I hope that each of you have this folder. Okay. What I came to you about last summer in respect to reorganization in the office, and we talked about it then, and y'all said y'all would be willing to talk about it some more this year, so I'm back again because we're at the point where the citizens of Stanley County, we need to reorganize the office so that we can work with them more effectively and efficiently, so when we tell them to go to which office, we don't have to tell them 2 or 3 to go to. We can just point out to one door and they can go to it and take care of what they need to take care of in that part of the office without getting all mixed up. Also, in doing this, as far as the rearranging, it helps in security quite a bit. We have a hallway in the back that's used to special proceedings, that in the reorganization of this, that hallway will be done away with and it'll become room that we can actually use in the office. So that's a big plus for us in the office. The thing in the very first colored part of the folder here that you have, that's the way the office is set up today. And in looking at that, you'll see that that hallway is in a wine color red. And then when you turn to the next page on that, this is the total change is actually on the last page, which I talked to you about last summer when we were looking at trying to reorganize this. If we proceed with part of the change, would be to actually take down 2 of the walls and just open it up where we could move the counter, where we can move it to that room and set it up. And the hallway, we can just close the door and lock it for right now until next year when we have time to get more money in the budget to actually handle the part of it of bringing people in to put up the walls. And in looking at this and talking to Mr. Lucas about that, he asked me if I had any estimates on it, and I said, well, the only estimate I have is what we had last year, which was somewhere around $7,500 to do the total job. To do what I'm wanting to do right now probably is going to be less than $5,000, which is fine. We have about $8,092 left in our budget right now, and so if we can do part of that right now and get that accomplished, then we can get some estimates then on putting the walls back up and get that in the budget for next year as far as that part of it. And that would open the office up to where we could move the personnel around and actually be able to do what we need to do. The only part of the plan that'd be left out would be actually increasing the area in the waiting room, which we can get by with that for a while. But we are in need of this. And so when I was talking to Mr. Lucas about it, the proposal to just go at it in two different directions, and this time of the year with that amount of money left there, which I've got other things we can do, but we need this worse. And then hopefully, if it's okay with the county commissioners for this to begin, and y'all see it necessary, then whatever money's left over that we do not spend, well, security's a big issue in the office. We've been through several things in the last month or two that if it hadn't been for the bailiffs and some other things, other types of security there, we would have had some big problems with. And it's getting to be a bigger issue than ever with people coming into the courthouse. With the economy like it is, they are unhappy. And we're dealing with many more people now than what we were even 3 years ago. With this past summer, for instance, we would have a month where we had 55 foreclosures taking place here in Stanley County. And 5 years ago, when people of Stanley County hired me for this job, we may have 12 to 14 foreclosures in a month. So that gives you a feel for what's happened in the court system. And for those of you, if you've had a chance to come into the office lately, you would see the amount of traffic increase that we have there. And it's just one of the, it's reorganize, regroup, and do the best we can for the people in Stanley County. At this time, the proposal to actually just take one wall down and take the one wall down to about, somewhere around 3.5 feet, about this high. And then that would open up the whole office to where we would have we're actually going to move another desk back there. We would have 5 people in that part of the office that could help the people when they come to the counter. Right now, when they come to where the door's at, there's 2 people there. One of them's in court a lot of the time. If the other one, if we have a domestic violence comes in and they have to go to the courtroom, we have nobody there. And we have to be able to make sure we have somebody in that part of the office. And by opening this up, then it puts more people in visible sight of the counter, people that can help. And that's the issue. That's what I'm after. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Honeycutt, for your drawings that were helpful to help us understand what you're asking for. Are there any questions of Mr. Honeycutt at this time?
I've talked to him about it before, and just taking that wall down now, I don't really see a problem with that if that's what he wants to do. He's got the money. I mean, I don't see a real problem. Now, I understand what you talk about on the foreclosures. Those people all up now are not. They're not from not being overextended themselves. The economy's got them in trouble. They're bitter when they come up there because they're mad at the whole world. Really not their fault anyway.
It's not their
I
fault.
know the feeling, but I know how to sympathize with them.
If there's no other discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve the request.
I second it.
We have a motion by Commissioner McIntyre and a second by Commissioner Dennis. Since we've already had discussion and questions, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Very good. We look forward to seeing the changes and the improvement in customer service.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
I appreciate this. And anytime any of you get a chance to, please come down and visit with us for a little bit. We've got some other things that are going to have to take place, and I have spoken to Mr. Lucas about that. And it's an ongoing process because of the economy as it is and the way our records are expanding. And I had Mr. Lucas come down about 6 months ago. We're just flat running out of room is what we're doing. And I talked to him a little bit about the other day about something we might be able to do to create a patchwork for that. But we got to be able to purge some records here before long. We're not going to have to. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Second item on our agenda this evening is a recommendation for some demolition, and our presenter will be Andy Lucas, the county manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This item is related to there's an old dilapidated barn that the county acquired with the purchase of about 1.6 acres that was adjacent to the Agri-Civic Center back in August of 2008. And that barn is in complete disrepair. It's unsightly. It actually poses a liability risk to the county because it has sort of unhindered access. And since I've been here, we haven't seen, there's no apparent need for the structure. And at some point in the future, that property will be ideal for additional parking or even expansion of the Agri-Civic Center. So staff is recommending that we take bids for the demolition of the barn and the disposal of that debris. And to ensure we comply with general statutes governing the disposal of a property, it's recommended that we take sealed bids from the demolition contractors, and that there's going to be items that are going to have value, reclaiming the lumber, the metal recycling, and so they would have to show those as deductions from the total cost of the demolition. And if the bids were to fall outside of what we have in our available revenues and our repairs and maintenance budget this year, they would just simply put that on hold and do it next year. But we had an informal estimate from one of our contractors that does our abandoned mobile home demolitions, and he believes, based on what can be reclaimed and what can be recycled, that we're looking at somewhere between $750 to $1,000 to have it removed. And so I think for something that's unsightly, that poses a risk, that if we can get bids in that range, certainly we'll move forward. So we're just asking for the boards to consider and approve the demolition of that property, consistent with the property disposal guidelines set forth in North Carolina general statutes.
Very good. Is everyone aware of the location and property we're talking about, if so, or do you have any other questions, I guess, is what I need to ask. Any comments or questions from the board?
Would there be a situation where a fire department might want to burn that as practice, or can they do that? The reclaim stuff? Reclaim, yeah.
Take it before you burn it.
The only issue you're going to have there is you're going to have debris at that point, and someone's going to have to remove it and haul it, and then you're not going to have any value for that. One of the things that's intriguing about it right now is you can reclaim that lumber. Okay. So it's not to say we couldn't do it. It's just that then you'd incur the cost of hauling that out of it. Yeah.
Any other comments, questions?
I move we approve it because I'm the one that told Andy we ought to look at it because there's some stuff that should be in there to be reclaimed with that old lumber. I know there's some flooring in there that can be, but some of the outside won't be, and that old tin's not any good, but just haul off. But we ought to look at it anyway instead of just trying to burn it.
We have a motion by Commissioner Dennis to approve the demolition.
Second.
Second by Commissioner McIntyre.
Can I amend his motion? Let's take up a collection.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Okay, in the amended agenda, the next item is going to be 911 emergency radio communications plan. Our presenter is going to be Karen McDaniel. Karen, we appreciate you coming forward and providing this information for us tonight.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to bring this before you guys tonight. You have a lot of information in front of you concerning our current radio infrastructure for Stanley County. Our radio infrastructure covers all of our public safety, law enforcement for all municipalities as well as in the county. It also is utilities and SCUSA. We have also radio for facilities, and the airport uses the radio system as well. So we have a lot of different departments that are affected by our current radio system. Some of the things that are concerning us, and again, you have the information, and I'm sure that you've read what we have there, but just to kind of summarize, it has come to the attention of our 911 Advisory Board in many conversations that we've had that we have a liability with our current radio infrastructure. We have old equipment that's in use. There have been patches made over the years, Band-Aids, if you will, to try to make sure that we continue to operate efficiently. That from the 911 center, we're able to dispatch calls, from the field side that they are able to receive calls. However, we have incidents where we have officers who are working with the Sheriff's Department. Depending on where they are in the county, they have to turn their radio to the correct channel in order to talk back to communications. We have had incidents where officers are out on a call. They have tried to get back to communications to let us know that they have some type of emergency going on. One of the ones mentioned in your package was that shots had been fired. We had an injured subject, and the officer was attempting to call communications and was unable to get us. And also, we have problems with coverage areas, people trying to call us and get into the communications center for help, and because of where they are, they're not getting back to us. Please understand there is no radio system that is perfect and that will give us absolutely 100% coverage. But we feel that the areas of Stanley County that we do have problems with, that we do not have coverage, are giving us a great liability in this county. And it is our duty in protection of the citizens and in the protection from 911 standpoint of our field personnel that we make sure we limit that as much as possible and that we try to get coverage throughout the county. Interoperability is a word that many of us have heard since 9/11. And as we know, during that time of 9/11, some of the issues that came out of the investigation that was done was communications issue. One agency couldn't talk to the other agency. The amount of radio traffic would have played a part in what they had going on as well. And so interoperability across the country became an issue for all agencies. Within Stanley County, our EMS and our fire department cannot talk to our law enforcement. So if they are all on a scene together and not standing side by side, face to face, where they can look at each other, they can't talk to each other. They have to call into communications, give one dispatcher the information. That dispatcher relays it to another dispatcher who then puts it out on a radio again. So if they could talk to each other, that would save a lot of time, has the potential of saving lives if you have someone in trouble that needs that law enforcement to come help them, if it's a fire or EMS person, and vice versa, if they're needing EMS, that kind of thing. So we feel that is in our best interest. And we've given you some numbers of how many field personnel this affects, and then we've added in family members that it affects. But when you look at the bottom line, our radio infrastructure, because we are here to protect the citizens of our community, meaning each of you guys, meaning myself, my staff, all of our staffs, and the citizens who depend on us, you're talking 65,000 people that this directly affects. And if we're not able to communicate with each other, we could have a disaster that is not a good thing for anybody. And we want to make sure that we are protecting everyone. So we are asking, we've done some talk, and we wanted to do a study, because even though all of us can sit and say we have this issue, we have that issue, we have all these problems, there are professionals who can do a study, put together information for us that will be explainable to all of us so that we can understand, here are issues and here's what you need to do to correct them. And because it will take a tremendous amount of funds to fix all of the issues, we feel that a study would be appropriate so we make sure we spend the money that we're entrusted with appropriately. So we did have one of the vendors that we had come out and talk to, part of the 911 Advisory Board, was Mission Critical Partners, and they gave us a fixed quote of $34,473 to come out, do a comprehensive study. They will immerse themselves in the community. They will talk with all the fire departments. They will talk with law enforcement, EMS, with a 911 center, They'll talk with utilities and SCUSA and facilities, anyone that would be directly involved with radios. They may even want to talk with you guys. I can't remember for sure if that's one that they mentioned, but they may want to talk to you. So they can give us a lot of critical information on issues and what to do to fix them and give us different options. One of their options will be to do nothing. In my personal opinion, that is definitely not an option, and we'll need to look at the other options that they give us. I did call for additional quotes from a couple of other companies to find out from other vendors how much it would cost, and Mission Critical Partners was the lowest at the $34,473. Other quotes we had were $90,000 to $115,000 and $45,000 to $50,000 in order to do this study. Closer to home, there was, in Rowan County, there was a Salisbury mill fire a couple of years ago, and they had field personnel that were hurt in that fire, and if I remember correctly, I have some support. Do we remember how many, unfortunately, that died in that fire? There were two. We had two firefighters, they had two firefighters that died in that fire. And again, it came back to part of the issue with that was communications. And so they have since redone their radio infrastructure. I don't know that it was all based on the investigation that came out of that, but I'm sure it played a part. So one of the things that I have learned since we sent you this agenda item was that I am able to pay the entire amount from the 911 surcharge fund, which means we will not need the money to come from the ad valorem taxes from the general fund. And this could, if we pay for it, will cover all parts for all municipalities that we would want involved in this. And then we would want all the municipalities to be a part of a steering committee so we all have some say in what comes out of it. So the bottom line is that we would like to request that you approve the allocation of these funds it was not budgeted for this year, but we feel in order to try to get grant money to cover the outcome of this, that we should go ahead and not wait any longer to do this study. So I am requesting that you allocate the funds from the 911 surcharge. And if you have any questions, ask me, and I have several from the advisory board that are here. They could possibly answer questions as well.
Thank you, Ms. McDaniel. I think that presentation was right on, very informative. Some of the information within the packet that you gave us that citizens may be interested in is that the EMS call volume since 1989 has quadrupled from 2,000 to 8,000, and that in just 6 years, the 911 calls dispatched has gone from 97,877 to almost 120,000. So that gives, I think, us all the idea about how many people are involved and how many calls are involved and so forth and so on. Very, very informative. Board members, do you have questions or comments?
The only comment I've got after meeting with them is we're way overdue.
I think it's also important, and I know that Commissioner Dennis has met with you, and we've had conversations with the manager as well. One of the things that we have talked about is being able to talk to each other, and I know that in 9/11, it was not only important that the people who were in that local jurisdiction talk with each other, but regionally as well. And I think this gives us an opportunity. It's not that far to Charlotte anymore. It's not that far to Concord anymore, certainly Salisbury. So I understand that part of the study is going to be to look to see what compatibility there might be with regional systems around. So I certainly applaud that as well. Hearing no questions or comments, I'll certainly entertain a motion.
I move that we approve.
Have a motion from Commissioner Dennis to approve. Second. Have a second from Commissioner McIntyre. Without any further comment, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Very good. We look forward to learning about what you find out as we move forward with this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the resolution that we added. I believe that Commissioner McIntyre will be the presenter.
Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners, this is a resolution in support of voter participation in the May 8, 2012 vote to amend the North Carolina Constitution protecting marriage. Whereas in 1995, the North Carolina legislature enacted North Carolina General Statute 51-1.2, which states that marriages, whether created by common law, contracted, or performed outside of North Carolina between individuals of the same gender, are not valid in North Carolina. And whereas the United States Congress enacted 1 U.S.C.S. Section 7, which states, in determining the meaning of any act of Congress or of any ruling, regulation, or interpretation of the various administrative bureaus and agencies of the United States, the word marriage means only a legal union between one man and one woman as husband and wife, and the word spouse refers only to a person of the opposite sex who is a husband or wife. And whereas in 2011 the North Carolina General Assembly allowed the people of this great state the right to vote on whether or not to amend the North Carolina Constitution to preserve marriage as the legal union of one man and one woman, and whereas North Carolina is the only state in the South that has not protected marriage in its Constitution, and whereas every state in the country that has allowed the people to vote, 30 in all, has protected marriage in its Constitution as the union of one man and one woman, including North Carolina's bordering states of Virginia, Tennessee, Georgia, and South Carolina. And whereas the Stanley County Commissioners encourage the people of Stanley County and North Carolina to voice their opinion by exercising their right to vote. And whereas the amendment reads, marriage between one man and one woman is the only domestic legal union that shall be valid or recognized in this state. This section does not prohibit a private party from entering into contracts with another private party, nor does this section prohibit courts from adjudicating the rights of private parties pursuant to such contracts. Now therefore be it resolved that Stanley County Board of Commissioners endorses the marriage amendment to the North Carolina Constitution, which states the only domestic legal union that is valid or recognized in North Carolina is marriage between one man and one woman. And be it further resolved that the Stanley County Board of Commissioners encourages voter participation in this important issue to be voted upon on May 8, 2012. This is the 5th day of March, 2012. And I make that into the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt this resolution by Commissioner McIntyre. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Louder. Any questions or comments from the rest of the board? Hearing none, all in favor of the resolution say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes. The next item on the agenda is our consent agenda, which members of the board have had an opportunity to look at, and none of the items have been pulled, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as we have it in our package. Motion by Commissioner Dennis. We have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Louder. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Very good. And at this point on our agenda, we have the opportunity for public comment. We always invite individuals to come at our meetings if they would like to address the board. Do we have any this evening who would like to do so? Seeing no one coming forward, I would like now to have some general comments and announcements from board members. And I'll begin on my left this evening with Commissioner Morton. Do you have any comment or announcement?
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
No comment. Commissioner McIntyre.
No comments.
And I'll go all the way to my right now with Commissioner Dennis.
No comment.
Or Commissioner Louder.
No comment.
Okay. I had actually two things I wanted to mention. I was encouraged by a quote I heard recently that was attributed to Mark Twain that said that if you choose not to read, you're no better off than if you cannot read. We actually are constantly getting information, and it may be that this might be something we'd either like to put on our website or pass along to our blogger friends. We actually received two bits of information recently, one from the East Coast, from Santee Cooper, and one from the West Coast, Pacific Gas and Electric, talking about how rate reductions and the availability of power is being used to promote economic development. That, along with another video that the Charlotte Partnership sent out touting the importance of water, and particularly the water in the area of Pittsburgh, made us feel like that maybe we need to get some information to the public and let them all know that power and water are certainly important to many of the people around the country, and we need to stay informed with this issue, whether it really draws people to our meetings or not. Second thing I'd like to mention is that on February the 24th, as was mentioned and announced at our last board meeting, it was announced that the county commissioners would have a budget retreat, and we, I thought, had a very a good meeting that day. And in fact, if you haven't done so, one of the things we did was to take a look back about 30 years and then a look forward for about 20 years. I would encourage you to do that, whether it's just you and your spouse or someone in your civic group or your Sunday school class. But sit down together and think about all the things that have taken place in the distant past and how those things affect what's going on in the future. That was one of the exercises that we did that day. I thought that was very informative. The result of our meeting, in addition to working with some numbers, really was to look at what is it that we have as a vision for Stanley County moving forward. And I feel like, and I think I can speak for the board in saying that there were 5 areas of the vision that are very important to us. One is to develop municipal and county collaboration. Ms. McDaniel has really spoken about that eloquently this evening, and how something like developing a 911 communication system is important to every party involved. There are many other things like that that are going on in our county that need to be addressed. Second thing is to develop and to establish a vibrant, diverse economy so that we're not depending upon any one thing, and that we're certainly looking at how to create jobs and reduce the cost of government and maintain the quality of life. A fourth item was to protect our natural resources. We are aware that the agricultural part of our economy certainly depends upon that, as does a growing tourism economy, and those are things that are very vital and important. And again, water is one of those natural resources that needs to be protected. A fourth item was to plan for sustainable growth and to make sure that we're looking not only internally but externally to see what's taking place in the region. And then the last thing, and maybe a wrap-up item, is to develop a shared community vision. But those were all important, I think, items for this board, continue to be important for this board, and I think the things that you'll see us seeking to budget and seeking to deliver to our fellow jurisdictions are all addressed by these items. At this point in time, I'd also ask if our manager has any comments.
No, sir, thank you.
Or our attorney?
No comment, thank you.
And hearing none, I will entertain a motion that we adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Dennis. Second by Commissioner McIntyre. All in favor say aye. We're adjourned.
Discussion.